I was in command of 3 Hombres. This is like more than 10 years ago or so. We were moored in the port of Horta in the Azores. Yeah, it's like beautiful place to kind of hang out. We just had discharged this rum, and we had loaded wine and this beautiful canned fish. Which when we loaded, it didn't come with a truck to us, but the fishing boat came alongside the Tres Hombres, and we had to load it there. When we had to sail out of port, we had a headwind. As you might know, Tres Hombres doesn't have an engine, so we had to tack out of port. And we had quite a nice crew on board. A very young chief officer mate, early 20s, but he was very much into sailing. And a few hands who had been on board for a couple of months, so they definitely knew their ropes. And then a few new trainees who joined the ship in the Azores. And the very nice thing was, if you know, like Horta, it has like an outer harbor where bigger ships can moor. And then it has the inner harbor, which is more like a marina. We were kind of like in the entrance of this inner harbor of the marina. And the wind was against us, like it was blowing through the piers in the outer harbor. And then moored on like the pier of the outer harbor was the 3-masted, fully rigged ship, the Stad Amsterdam. And we just had kind of mingled with their crew, and we had invited them on board Tres Hombres, and we got like the big tour on the Stad Amsterdam. And she is not only like the most beautiful, fully rigged clipper ship, but she's also a passenger ship. And quite luxurious at that, well, at least for a sailing ship. So we were quite impressed. And I guess their crew must have been impressed a little bit about how Spartan Tres Hombres was. So when we left, I kind of instructed the crew again, so they got the theory of tacking really in their minds. We were kind of moored on the entrance of this inner marina. We could basically let go the lines and kind of go downwind into the outer harbor. But then we had to steer up hard and really get close hold, and sailing straight towards this Stad Amsterdam clipper ship. And then right at like the stern of the ship, we had to tack. And the most beautiful thing of Tres Hombres is that, she's rigged as a brigantine, but very well balanced. You have like the foremast totally square rigged and the mainmast fore and aft rigged. So we just had the mainsail set on the mainmast, and we had a few staysails in between the masts, and then we had the big square topsail on the foremast and a few jibs. And this big square topsail, when you tack the ship, you basically steer the ship into the wind. The topsail catches the back and pushes the bow over. And then as soon you feel the mainsail catching wind again, it's let go and haul, and the topsail goes around, and there you are on the other tack. And of course you do the same with your jibs and your staysails, but the topsail is really the engine there. And then it was sailing against towards the marina, and then you tack again, and then we were like tacking back towards the Stad Amsterdam. And by that time, the crew of the Stad Amsterdam had realized that we were tacking outwards of the outer harbor, and they were like quite amazed that the brigantine would be maneuvering this way without engine in the middle of port. Really, every time we would tack from then on, they would get their horn going. And so I think it was like 7 tacks going out, and then in between the piers, and then it was then we were back in the ocean, in the North Atlantic. What an amazing feeling to be able, just by the power of nature, to get your ship out of quite a tiny port like that against the wind. It's really that is really amazing. Sailing like a witch.
How good is it to hear from Jorne?
Oh, it was so lovely to talk to him. And what a great story as well.
Yeah, talk about practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I know.
I bet they never forget how to tack.
Exactly. I love that image. For those of you who don't know, the Stad Amsterdam is this massive 3-masted clipper ship. It's a gorgeous, internationally recognised vessel from the Netherlands. And so the fact that this pirate brigantine with 2 masts...
No engine.
No engine was tacking up and down between the shore and the Stad to get out is, a fantastic image.
Who are you, Mrs.?
I'm Hannah Herford and I am bosun.
And I'm Jess Clay and I'm first mate on this imaginary strange boat that we are sailing around the UK. We're currently on our way to Bristol for episode 6. We've just come from the Solent and we're stopping into Falmouth for a little while, which is nice, which is where I live when I'm not on the water.
Falmouth.
Nice to have a pint at the chain locker. And actually where the cool kids actually go to the front. The front's where it's at, to be fair.
Okay. Well, you've told everyone now, but is that okay?
That's all right.
The secret's out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they do Breton dancing once a week at the moment at the front.
Ooh.
It's a lot.
Okay.
It's intense.
Okay.
It's intense when you're trying to have a pint.
We had a great time in Falmouth. We've met Sean before. If you haven't heard Sean's beautiful Glaswegian accent, then go back to episode 2 where you will.
Yeah.
But when we were doing our traineeship, we were in Falmouth for a while and he ate a bad oyster. I think at the front.
Oh.
I think so. I don't think it was the chain locker because I think we'd been there before.
Was it a festival? Because they do have the oyster festival.
I think it might have been. Yeah, I think it might have been. That's a not a good story about Falmouth.
Just in defence of the front, they don't serve food themselves.
No, I think this must have been like a stall or something. I can't really remember. I think it was definitely a festival. It's great. It's a great place. Love it here.
Yeah, great.
Listening to the seagulls.
Yeah. Insert seagull sound effect.
Insert seagull noise, sorry.
But if you are, we'll plug Falmouth for a little minute because it is a wonderful place.
It is.
Brilliant maritime museum.
Yeah, excellent. It's got the small boat collection there from the National Maritime Museum.
It does.
It's all housed in Falmouth.
If I was to say Falmouth for orders, would you know what that is?
What?
Falmouth for orders. Falmouth for orders.
Oh, the packet ships.
Yeah.
Yay! Falmouth. Go on, tell us about the packet ships.
I don't know much about it, but Falmouth for orders. It's where the boats would come and they'd anchor off outside of Falmouth, and the little Falmouth punts would go out and deliver all sorts of stuff, like they'll resupply and re-water and stuff, but also deliver the news and say where the best prices for different items they might have on board would be found. So if you've come from somewhere with a cargo of something, you go to Falmouth for orders and they say, right, well, why don't you go up to Liverpool because you'll get X amount for it there, or take it over to the Netherlands for X amount. So yeah, Falmouth for orders. And apparently it still happens today. But Adam at Classic Sailing was saying that there's a Facebook group.
Oh, really?
who watched the ships outside of Falmouth to see where they're coming and going. And yeah, it's Falmouth for orders is still very much a happening thing.
That wonderful story was told to you by our good friend Jorne Langelaan, who is the founder and CEO of EcoClipper B.V, whoop, whoop, which we've both worked for.
Yes.
I worked for 2 years as Chief Communications Officer. I got Jess involved during a quiet winter couple of months for her between sailing.
I had 4 minutes free that winter, so I filled it with utilising my social media skills.
Yeah, always. Jess, you know social media. It's basically every week.
You know the Facebook.
Yeah. Yeah, we've worked with Jorne, and I was living in the same town as Jorne and his family. So yeah, this is an absolute pleasure to do an episode with him where we talk to him and also talk about sail cargo. I'm going to say it again because it's such an exciting word. People hate it, and I love that it's so contentious, but it's not that contentious.
Well, I mean, it makes sense, really. Not only is it the future, it's the past. So
I agree. People get really angry about it, Jess.
People get bizarre about sail cargo.
So bizarre, and we've seen it as well.
People get so weird about sail cargo that they think messaging people on the internet and ranting about it is a good idea. I mean, why are you ranting to us about it? We're clearly into it. We're not going to agree with you, and we're certainly not going to argue with you. Like, go and get a life.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we don't have to go into the argument of to have an engine or not. Regardless of what you think of it, you've got to admit that if you have sails on a boat, you are in a better position to get out of trouble if your engine fails. And
yes.
It's a completely different understanding of how to sail, especially something like the size of the Tres Hombres, which he was talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess in a way it's a bit like, you know how you're only supposed to use your electrical navigation equipment as a secondary aid to navigation, and you're supposed to know how to do things the analog way.
Yeah.
I guess with sailing, like if you've got sails, you need to know how to use your sails like you've got no engine. It's like bow thrusters and stuff as well. I'm going to upset a few people now. I was recently on a delivery trip with a boat with bow thrusters.
Yeah. Had you ever used it?
Well, yeah, we did in the end, but we didn't need to.
Yeah.
It's cheating. It's cheating. You should know how to manoeuvre your boat without the need for bow thrusters. But I mean, yeah, I can see how they're helpful.
Yeah.
We used to refer to it as a very naughty name when I lived on a narrow boat, because some of the canal boats had bow thrusters as well. So,
what do you call it? No, go on. I mean, we can...
Pressing the button. Anyway.
That's so good. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, bow thrusters are weird ones. I think it's... Yeah, I mean, I've sailed with bow thrusters before, and they have caused more trouble than they're worth, especially if you don't know the strength of the wind or tide.
Right.
Something can suddenly switch and the wind and tide is pushing you stronger than the bow thruster can, push against. There's things like that, but yeah, I don't know. I think... whatever floats your boat. Yeah. But ultimately understanding that you can't. Yeah.
If you don't know how to move your boat, then get off your boat. Anyway, run over.
Jess's hard and fast rules here for sailing. Yeah, but evidently anyway, the crew of the Tres Hombres can sail their boat.
They can, yes.
Yeah, and I've never sailed on an engineless boat actually. I've sailed, you do manoeuvres where you're sailing without the engine, so to pick up a mooring buoy or sail off an anchor or something like that, which is always good fun, actually, because there's such an achievement in doing it without an engine. It's such an achievement.
Yeah. I sailed on Blue Mermaid. She's engineless.
Yes, she is. That's a sail cargo vessel. I think I mentioned sail cargo in the first episode.
I think you've mentioned sail cargo in every episode, which is great. So, seeing as you love it so much, why don't you tell dear listeners, what is sail cargo, Hannah?
So, sail cargo, in the modern sense, is ethical shipping by sailing ship.
Yes.
It looks at everyone along the supply chain. It looks at benefiting the environment as much as possible and just reducing your carbon footprint when shipping, and also making sure that everyone along the supply chain is getting a fair deal. For the most part, it's about being aware of what you're buying as well. So there's a bit of thought that goes into it. It's not just shipping in its simplest terms.
Well, there's the whole ethos of sustainability, isn't there? And
yes,
using and buying what you need. Like, you don't need these massive cargo vessels because we shouldn't be using that amount of stuff anyway. So sail cargoes is very sustainable ethos with a big push towards circular economies. Stuff that we could probably talk about over 6 episodes of a podcast.
Yeah.
But I think throughout this, we'll probably point you quite a lot to the EcoClipper website.
Yeah.
Hannah and I, as mentioned, both worked for communications. So a lot of this stuff we've written about.
Yes.
And the EcoClipper website is actually a fantastic resource.
Yes.
Because we wrote most of it.
Because we put the time in. So there's different ways that you can think about sail cargo. I think that's necessary to say, because if you're looking at this, and you automatically have to question capitalism as well. And I think people really don't like that.
No. Being in the behind the scenes side of sail cargo, we've both spoken to producers in far off lands who get pittance for the stuff that they spend all year working really hard for. And it's got to change.
Yeah.
We speak to producers in the UK who have a fantastic ethos of their own. And then the only options they have to get their products out and about are by diesel guzzling cargo ships.
Yeah.
And so then you've got the whole...
Offsetting, yeah.
I mean, carbon offsetting, great and all, but why not just not create the carbon in the first place?
I also have conversations with peers who work like the social aspect of things rather than coming at climate change from an environmental point of view. And the problems that we face, especially in this country, to do with class and how much people can afford is tricky, because a lot of things that will help the environment, so for example, like using a sailing ship to ship products, means that it's quite expensive.
Yes.
Fundamentally.
Yeah.
It's priorities, but it's the fact that if there are people out there with money, they are interested in our future, you know, or like the future of the planet. And I think a lot of people are there, but, you know, you do just try to maybe make those changes and look at it from an ethical point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think that's actually skimmed it pretty well,
Yeah.
to be honest, you know.
Should we just check in? Are you okay, Hannah?
I'm okay. Are you okay?
I'm okay. Is everyone at home? Are you all okay?
Are you all okay?
Good.
Are you raging at the at Spotify right now? Are you angry?
No, it's a fascinating industry, and it's really exciting to be involved in it. 90% of everything in front of you right now came from abroad via a huge fuel guzzling cargo ship.
Yeah.
90% of everything in every room in your house, in every aspect of your life. I mean, we're generalising. I'd say the average person. I mean, it's huge industry. It's responsible for about 1 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide in the air every year. 1 billion tons. And it's responsible for about 3% of greenhouse gases. Like, it sounds so obvious that sail cargo is the way to go, because obviously wind power is essentially what it comes down to.
Absolutely. What EcoClipper plans to do is to develop a fleet of clipper ships, which is like those of the Cutty Sark. So if you've ever seen Cutty Sark, or Stad Amsterdam, actually, you'll see that they have a specific shape hull.
Beautiful clipper bow.
It's a clipper bow. They cut through the water and were incredibly fast in their time.
Yeah.
And they would be based around the world and would be able to sail the main traditional sailing routes.
Yeah, trade winds.
I'd love to go sailing on a clipper ship. So in the meantime, EcoClipper have bought an existing vessel called the Tukker, and this is a Dutch trading ketch. They've kind of rebuilt and repurposed this vessel to trade cargo, and it will start trading this year. Yeah, the Tukker's great. She's got a barge-shaped hull. She'll be able to carry about 70 cubic metres, or about 50 to 70 tonnes of cargo. Mm-hmm. And she'll have accommodation for about 12 guests and then a professional crew. Shall we share this fantastic interview we've had with Jorne? Yes, let's do it. Okay.
I'm Captain Jorne Langelaan, founder of EcoClipper. Yeah, I've been sailing pretty much since I was 12 years old. Well, I say sailing, but when I started, it was actually working on motor ships. But yeah, I think since I was like 18 years old or so, I switched from motor to sailing ships. From then on, I've been working on schooners, barks, different ships, but also still on motor vessels like pilot boats, tugboats, whatnot. And but mostly small ships, actually. And in the beginning, this was for the adventure. This was for going out there, chasing the horizon. But at a certain point, I was on a ship making expeditions to Antarctica with biologists and who pointed out the way nature is being treated by humanity. Yeah, from that moment on, I was really into sailing ships, mostly because of the environmental part of it. And yeah, really, sail cargo has become my lifestyle. Yeah, really what I do.
You've got bigger fish to fry with EcoClipper 500. Do you want to tell us a bit about that, where you're at, and what the big plan is?
Yeah, with EcoClipper, of course, we started with designing a prototype ship, which can be built serial. And yeah, this is like the EcoClipper 500. We work together with like 10 different naval engineers to really finalize this prototype design. And yeah, now we have it there, and we went to about 25 European shipyards as a tender to ask for quotations. We got in contact with like a real nice shipyard here in the Netherlands, and they gave like a quotation for a ship. And of course, we will need to look at building them in series because, yeah, the aim, the vision of EcoClipper is to connect all the continents with emission-free transport for goods and for passengers. So we not only give like an alternative for shippers and importers for their freight, but also an alternative for people who still want to continue to travel, but yeah, want to fly less or don't want to fly at all anymore. Yeah, we analyzed up till now 5 different trading routes, which which needed to have two like main characteristics. One, that it would be a route where there's actually a lot of traffic, where there's a lot of a big market. And two, that this route needs to be feasible for sailing vessels from a meteorological point of view. So it needs to make sense to use the wind in that respect. The 5 routes we looked at, it's the transatlantic route, the trans-Pacific route, the Asia-Europe route, and the global route, and then of course now the European route, which is started now with the Tukker. And for these routes, we made this EcoClipper 500 prototype design, which is able to carry about 500 tons of cargo, in probably about 700 cubic meters of cargo or so. And then with 12 passengers and a maximum of 36 trainees, it's really serving two markets, like the transport market but also the passenger and trainee market. And the difference between passengers and trainees is that they both are paying guests, but the passengers, they come like in 2-person cabins. They really have the joy of relaxing while the ship is sailing along with a nice speed through the trade winds. But trainees, they travel basically economy class. They pay about half the price of the passengers, but they're also welcomed to work the ship. Yeah, more like of an adventure style of traveling. We really decided to start with the Tukker now, which is about 10 times smaller as a prototype 500 ship, because we decided to stay on the safe side, to really kind of grow not at a crazy rate. We know it is possible to grow really fast. The market is there. But yeah, now we kind of it's like the smallest viable product if you keep it at startup vocabulary. But yeah, it also gives us the advantage of learning how to work together with our partners. For example, with the Talsma shipyard, the shipyard we chose for the EcoClipper 500 ships. But now we had the opportunity to work with them already with a small ship and kind of feel how that process goes. We now have the opportunity to work together with the different cargo brokers like Nildam Traders, Ship by Sail like Fairtransport, all the different brokers to kind of get the feel of how working together goes, but also work together with the different passenger agencies like Classic Sailing, like Slow Travel, like Fair Ferry, also Fairtransport again, Windseeker, just all these beautiful companies we kind of want to work with. And it has been a real nice ride to start small, but I must say we are looking further already, and looking at the next possible routes and the next possible growth of EcoClipper.
And how did you get into sail cargo to begin with? I mean, I think I know this story. I mean, you've been part of this industry pretty much, well, almost since it started in this century and in this format.
Yeah. Well, I actually started with the first time I sailed on a sail cargo ship was in the last century, like in the 90s of the last century. That was on the schooner Avontuur, when she was still owned by Captain Paul Walen, who passed away now. Yeah, he was one of the last Dutch schooner captains of the old school, I guess, and joined his ship when it was operated inter-island trade in the Caribbean. We would do like a liner service between Sint Maarten, Anguilla, Montserrat, and Dominica, and that like every week. So we would bring like a lot of food stuff, supermarket stuff, which was needed in Montserrat, because there was like a volcanic eruption there. So the major port and the airport was broken down or not in use anymore, and we could still operate on like this pier, just kind of sticking out in the Caribbean Sea, and we had our own loading gear. And we were basically bringing, goods for the still operating supermarkets there. It was like really, really amazing time, and it also showed me about, that it's still possible to do sail cargo. Of course, in that time, Captain Paul Wale, he was kind of off the radar. Whenever he set sail and he left the port, you couldn't really find him or contact him or anything like that. Yeah, no shore-based office or anything. He was just doing the trading, and that was it. And later on, of course, the sail cargo companies became more aware of also doing communication and marketing. Yeah, where you know a lot about as well, I guess.
Yeah, that's where we fit into it all. You saw that transition then from that, not perhaps having a website, not doing social media, not having a sailing schedule where, online, all of that. How else do you feel the sail cargo industry has evolved since you got into it? Because the times have changed, obviously. And I suppose people's perceptions of sail cargo and what it can do, especially their perceptions towards the environment and how it can help, has changed.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of change. Of course, when I started in the 90s, we didn't exist. Nobody knew that it was really happening. And whoever would hear about it would shrug her shoulders or his shoulders and say like, well, I don't know, these guys are nuts, and what's that all about? That doesn't make sense at all. But even like 10 years later, when together with two friends, I started Fairtransport, 90% of the people who heard about it thought we were crazy. It was like absolute craziness what we were doing. And now it really shifted around. 90% of the people I talk to, they're like, wow, hey, that might actually be quite a good idea. But still, it is kind of this niche. Yeah, nobody really knows that it exists. Yeah, we are a bit in a bubble. Maybe you girls as well. In a way, you know everything about sail cargo, I guess, and all the different projects. But that's only still a small niche. Most people are totally not aware of it. So there's still a lot to win. And I think, even when there's 1,000 or 10,000 ships sailing around, it's still a niche. But with every ship which gets launched, which gets operational, there is hundreds of people, and when it's running, thousands of people realizing that it's happening. So every ship is a good addition to this change of shipping. So nowadays, of course, there's maybe about 10 or 15 ships operating, which is very different than in the 90s when there was just the Avontuur and maybe the Albatros. But apart from that, there weren't many sail cargo ships anymore.
My other hat, on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, I work for Classic Sailing.
Yeah.
So having a look at your schedule recently, it looks fantastic. And it's quite nice because one of the things Sail Trade Southwest are doing with Liner and Ibis when she's restored is creating a regular trade route, basically. And it looks like you're doing a very similar thing, but going a bit further afield. So yeah, it definitely all seems like everything's happening now. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Actually, this route we now published, like, of course, the first part, like the spring route, more or less. But the whole idea behind it is that we are doing 3 of the same routes every year. Well, it will not be exactly the same, but it will be roughly the same. And of course, we cooperating with different agents and different cargo brokers. One of them is the Nildan Traders. Maybe they also work together with your ships there on the south coast.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. My one day with Sail Trade Southwest, I'm usually actually based with Alex over at New Dawn Traders.
Yeah.
So everything's all very, very...
It's such a tight-knit community, huh?
It really is, yeah.
So, I mean, it's really exciting that Tukker's up and running and that you've got this sailing schedule mapped out as well, Jorne. Give us a rough idea of what a year in the life of the Tukker will look like.
Yeah, so it will be starting in the Netherlands and then taking a cargo to the south of England. We're actually still looking for importers who might be interested to import cargoes to the south coast. Yeah, we are in contact here in the Netherlands with a few like real nice farmers and gin makers. So that's kind of a sort of cargo we would be bringing to the south coast. And then from there, it goes to Portugal. So we're also still looking for cargoes from England to Portugal. So actually the south going cargoes, it's still something we have to really work on. But actually then from Porto going north again, yeah, there's quite a lot of cargoes. We are working together, of course, with Nildan Traders, with their beautiful food program and all the port agents they work together with. And then we also work together with Anton Mann of Xisto Wines and Port of Bristol, and with Ship by Sail. So there's like all these charterers and brokers from the UK who are importing wine and olive oil. Also, there is some agents in France, Noirmoutier, the area around Bordeaux, where we also plan to sell wine from there to England, but also to the Netherlands. There's, of course, the connection going up the Thames, of the Thames barges, and in the future, hopefully, we'll be working with some of the Thames barges to have the cargo coming in with larger ships and ship them over onto Thames barges to go like all the way up the river. Yeah, it's an exciting round trip. So it's basically like serving the west of Europe with short sea shipping. But we are mainly competing, or if you can call it competing, with trucks, because there is, of course, a huge difference between the emissions of trucks and of our sail trader. Like, we are basically sailing emission free. And those trucks, they have quite some emissions, and it's still nowadays not really feasible for trucks to be totally electrical or so, because it only has like an action radius of maybe 100 miles or so. So yeah, we're really offering an alternative which is sustainable, and we are of course a bit slower, but that's the whole point of having a more natural economy.
Lovely. Yeah. To be honest, there's such a huge... I don't want to get into this too much, but because of Brexit... that it's not easy for trucks at the moment, so we might as well use ships.
Well, there is definitely that advantage, but also like trucks, of course, they mainly come in at Dover. But for sailing ships, of course, you can basically come into all the small ports around the coast. That's a huge advantage, of course. In the pre-industrial times, when there was not so much emission, then all those ports, they were used actually for trade with emission-free sailing ships. So yeah, in that sense, it's really like circular. We're returning to circular economy when we have sail cargo ships on the small ports again. And has been, of course, like a political decision made after the Second World War to invest heavily in roads and road transport against the infrastructure of ships and canals and ports. But yeah, we are now on the brink of a change where, yeah, we have to realize again that road transport doesn't come for free. Well, if you go bring cargoes through rivers again into ports, then yeah, you're actually again using nature to support your whole logistics system.
Yeah, and the infrastructure's there. I mean, like we say, we've been doing it for hundreds of years. To go back to something we've already done is so much of a shorter step than to have to make an entire new system to go forward with something. So, yeah. You're not using shipping containers, but then companies like Sail Cargo, when Seaba's up and running, I think they are. What's your reasoning for not using shipping containers?
Well, it really has to do with practical question or the practical answer, and there's more the philosophic answer. But the practical answer right now is very simple. Containers on a small sailing ship means that you need to build a hull which is the shape of a box. That doesn't sail very well. So practically, yeah, it isn't really possible on these small ships. But of course, you could do it on larger ships. I wouldn't say that you shouldn't do it. Also, yeah, containers by itself, it has, of course, a very big disadvantage, is that it's so efficient in a way. This is, of course, something you don't want to hear. You don't want to hear from a ship owner or a ship operator. But yeah, actually, I believe that we are shipping way too much stuff and that shipping is actually way too cheap. So yeah, I wouldn't mind if we really look at the things we ship and only ship things which really make sense, and we don't ship things because it's just cheaper to produce somewhere else, or because it's just easier to get rid of the garbage somewhere else, because there's no environmental laws in a different state. And this is, of course, where a lot of the shipping comes from nowadays, because it's just cheaper to produce in the south than to produce in the north over here in the Netherlands or so. And yeah, I think it makes way more sense to only ship goods you would need to ship because you don't have it in the place where you bring it to, and not because the wages are just the bare minimum where you take it from. That's just another form of colonialism. We just don't want to call it that way.
Yeah. We'll definitely catch back up with you at some point then. Sounds like there's plenty to talk about. Really, really great chatting to Jorne. So nice to catch up with him. If you want to find out more about EcoClipper, have a look at the website, ecoclipper.org. They've got some great articles on the website, some of which Hannah and I have written, and some of which we'll link in the description below. Anything you want to know about sail cargo, the whys, the hows, any of that kind of stuff, do have a look at the EcoClipper website. Jorne's the man in the know.
He is, and you can follow them also on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
Yep.
Let's move on to fan mail.
We had some lovely fan mail from last episode. In particular, I'll give a shout out to Martin, who I've sailed with on Pilgrim last season, who is awesome and has great taste in cake, I must say. He says, "Hey, again a nice one. Heard it yesterday afternoon whilst having sun and heavy rain outside. podcast on inside, and a piece of cake. Couldn't be better. Thanks. You're welcome, Martin. Save us cake, please, for next time you're in the UK.
Yeah, just send it.
Send us
No, don't
cake.
send us
Sail
cake.
cargo. Slices of cake.
Now there's something. So a couple of episodes ago, Jess and I announced our partnership with the She Sees part of Rewriting Women in Maritime History, which is a project organised by the Lloyd's Register Foundation. We had a chat with some of the main ladies who are organising this project. So if you're interested in hearing from them, I think it's episode 3 we talked to them about the project as a whole, and so many of you were interested in it and wanting to know more details about how we're going to be involved. We thought we would add on the rest of this lovely interview, which covers the contemporary aspect of the project, and that's called She Sees.
Yes, go into that. We'll speak to you in the next episode, and hopefully we'll have made it to Bristol.
Yeah, fair winds.
Fair winds.
Hi, I'm Nicola Good. I am the External Communications Director of Lloyd's Register Group. I am a former maritime journalist, been in the industry for about 25 years, and I look after all our external relations.
Hi, my name's Emily Sandy. I am a photographer, specifically a portrait photographer, visual storyteller, and I'm working on the contemporary component for Rewriting Women into Maritime History, and we've called it She Sees.
Hi, I'm Louise Sanger. I'm the Head of Research, Interpretation and Engagement for the Heritage and Education Centre in the Lloyd's Register Foundation. So our team are coordinating the Rewriting Women project and bringing together the archival elements and the contemporary elements and to share all of those stories with you.
I'm Erna Janine. I'm a weaver and textile artist, and I'm the other part of She Sees. And together with Emily, we hope to engage in visual storytelling through the use of portrait photography and weaving.
One of you lovely ladies like to tell us why a photographic project, I think, more than anything else. I mean, the visual side of this obviously is stunning. But why not a video project? Why not an audio project? What was it about photography that you thought this is what we need? This is how we need to showcase the women.
Wow, it could be all of those things. So Janine and I, we've worked together for a long time now, and we generally give us a challenge. We collaborate and do a showcase once a year using any kind of medium. Well, I'm a photographer, so photography has to be included. I'm a portrait photographer, and Janine is a weaver, so textiles and visuals. It really depends on the brief, the project, who you're working with, and what the premise of the story is. So we know what we're doing, as in we have these ladies lined up, but we haven't delved into their stories yet. So depending on their stories, that's gonna create the visuals in a way. So we have done test shoots, we have a strong aesthetic that we're gonna go for, but we're also open to changing that or adding other layers, other elements.
Yeah, I think the women very much will be, a part of, they'll take the reins in a way in the shoots, because we're telling their stories. So they're co-creators in the process, and the textiles are a visual aid to tell that story, as is the portrait photography. So it's the three elements coming together to find, a new and exciting way to tell their stories, and not just a picture of the face, but something more, literally another layer. And yeah, we've been working together for 4 years now, me and Emily, and we've done 4 projects, so one each year. And yeah, every time we develop it a little bit further, and we're quite also playful with it. So there is an element of openness to see also what the women will bring, and how that will inspire us to work, in a relatively open way to get their voices across.
Yeah, so it's very much co-creating with the women, empowering them to tell their story, and we're working together basically. And for each project that we've done, we always make sure, we show them the visuals, we show them the edited story, or whatever form that takes, and say, are you happy with that? They're at the core. It's their story.
And I loved the idea of pairing with the fabric and the textile side of stuff.
Well, yeah, it's another element that could be quite evocative, or the textile could be any type of metaphor for whatever they want to portray about their experience in the maritime industry as women. So, it's just a wonderful aid. And textiles in general, they also have a place within maritime history. I mean, they tend to rot away, so they're never really fully represented in museums. But there is a huge part of the history and what that would represent. And we're looking into historical textiles, so linen, hemp, and jute for this project as a visual language. So that will be the color scheme.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, traditional boats especially, they're so tactile.
Sails and mooring ropes. I hadn't actually thought about it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the man who grows the linen for this project, he is a boat builder as well, and grows, spins, and weaves his own sails, and then sets off, for instance, across the channel with a sail that he made.
Yeah, that he grew. It's amazing.
Completely relying on the skills for survival. Yeah.
So he's just based down the road in Stroud. So he grows his own flax. Janine can tell you more about it. So he grows his own flax, spins it, all of that process. Fantastic. And so we went and saw him, and you've been getting that from him, haven't you?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Wow.
We were chatting yesterday, weren't we, Janine, about the rope making and how integral that's been to maritime trade. And also I've visited the Chatham Historic Dockyard, and if anyone's been there, it's really amazing. And if you haven't, I recommend going to their rope walk. It's I can't remember the length, maybe 1/4 of a mile, something like that off the top of my head. And just the absolute scale of the industry going into weaving all of these fibres together to make these ropes, to make sure they're strong enough, for the job. And it's an inspiring place, and they still make rope there today, which is fantastic. And the other thing that ties in really well with is, the work of Lloyd's Register and of Lloyd's Register Foundation is safety. So these vessels are relying on the rope to be strong, to be stable, to be secure, and relying on the people that are working on them and operating them and designing them and building them to have done that properly, for it to be safe. And I think that all ties together really well with this project.
Yeah, and I think it's also nice that there's an element of sustainability within focusing on these very, very traditional fibers that have sustained the industry for so long. Yeah.
Which brings me to one of the case studies we have on board is a seaweed harvester, a seaweeder based in Cornwall. Which is very much about harvesting the seaweed in a sustainable manner. So that will be bringing the attention to that, as well as everything else that we're going to uncover in these stories. So that there's so much scope, and all the women, they're so keen and excited to be involved, and there was no hesitation. Just yes, please. What do you need me to do? Yeah. They're on board, which is excellent. And they're quick replies as well. So I'm kind of going, just, replying to everyone, and then working out locations and dates. And there's a couple who offered to take us sailing. And there's one in particular said, look, we can meet at the Isle of Wight, and I'll take you I'll sail you to Normandy, and we can get some stinky cheese.
Nice.
Perfect.
But then somebody yesterday mentioned seasickness. I didn't even think about that. And then someone suggested just keep your eye on the horizon, you'll be fine. But yeah, we'll see. I'll take some tablets just in case. Maybe I can get some advice of you two.
You're not a real sailor unless you've been sick off the bow of a boat. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh my god, yeah.
Okay. By uncovering women throughout maritime history and showcasing women working within the industry today, do you think there is a bright and more diverse and inclusive future for girls to aspire to a career in the future?
Without a doubt, it's the best industry, and there's plenty of career options, and the more people know about it, the more they're going to jump in and want to be involved.
It comes back to that being able to see someone that looks like you as well, doesn't it?
Completely agree.
That's one of the things that the Royal Academy of Engineering picked up on as well. Even before this project, seeing someone that looks like you, they did a photographic project, because the traditional image of someone in engineering is a man in a hard hat. So they've created this fantastic resource which is freely available, full of lots of other photos of engineering in all of its different guises, in all of its diversity, not just women, men as well, not necessarily wearing hard hats, but there are so many different nuances and types of images that you can use to represent these projects. And I think that really, as you say, when you see someone doing something, you physically see that photograph or hear their voice, it really can inspire you to do the same.
I also think with these women, I think once it's all out there, and the stories especially, I think just creating awareness of all of these opportunities that you know young women can go and explore, you know, potentially having work experience or with these different sectors. And yeah, that's the hope. We need to inspire everyone through the visual storytelling, and yeah, making that available to everyone.
And there's some really big players working towards that end as well. We're hoping through this project we can, as Emily says, do the storytelling, you know, really inspire people. But the UN Global Compact are working on the Just Transition Maritime Task Force. So they want a just transition for seafarers as the industry changes, as the industry evolves and new technologies come out to reach ambitious climate change targets for net zero. We don't want anyone to be left behind. We want that to be fair and just, and not just, you know, the nations that can afford to evolve, but also investing in the skills and the capacity building in other parts of the world, and making sure that it is a just, diverse and a fair transition. So it's nice to know that our project can help to raise the awareness of some great initiatives that are already happening.
Yeah, great. Absolutely fantastic.
Thank you, ladies. That was lovely.